Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. In this video we're going to take a look at this knife called the Shark. This is a joint collaboration between Derek Costa and Daryl Kashtian under the brand D-Rocket Design. So, small little knife. We'll do specs, overall impressions, details, same stuff as always. I do have to tell you guys that my office is a mess and I honestly have no idea what this shipped with, so my bad. We're pre-blade here, so my office is not going to get any cleaner in the short term. So we will push forward. In terms of the specs here, let's grab one very close size comparison, and that is the Mastrop Gent. Looking pretty close. Then the Kershaw Dividend here as another one. So blade length is 3 inches, handle length 3.75, giving us an overall of 6.75. Blade steel is done in M390. And then let's take a look at some of the other things. Thickness, 0.51 inches here next to the Dividend. And then in the closed position, the width is just 0.75 inches. So ceramic bearing, ceramic detent. It's a flipper. It's got a stainless steel lock insert. It's got a 3D milled pocket clip. It's got a whole bunch of good stuff going on here. And the anno work is is gorgeous. This is, I don't know if the light's going to get it right. Let's move some of this stuff, and then we'll look at the blade stock here in a moment. But the anno work is super nice. This one's like a purple and blue, very attractive color. In fact, my wife has asked me on 3 separate occasions if she can have this knife. I doubt she remembered that she had asked me on 3 separate occasions, and I told her she absolutely could as long as she carried it, which she probably won't. So anyways, let's take a look at the blade stock real quick here. Let's get this on. It's zeroed. 0.137. Now let's take a look at thickness behind the edge, because this is this one's got a little bit of meat here. So that's where we're at. Thickness behind the edge, 0.34. Para 2, again for comparisons, 0.025. So obviously it's got a little bit more meat behind the edge than, let's say, a Para 2. And then stock thickness, I think it's a little bit thicker as well. 0.145, 0.136. Okay, so no, a little bit thinner blade stock than a Para 2, but it's thicker behind the edge. It also has, it's not a full flat grind, it's kind of a half height flat grind, which I guess can also be called a saber grind. So you're going to get some difference in the cutting characteristics, of course. All right, I think we've gone through all the specs here. Overall impressions. You know, I really like quite a few things about this knife. Obviously the materials are premium. I like the fact that even though it is a very small knife, it actually fits in the hand well with no hot spots. I'm just barely getting a 4-finger grip here on this thing. You guys can see where my pinky's hitting. So you know, it's comfortable for its size. It works well in my hand size. There's nothing, you know, that's jabbing me. I think the size allows it to be carried fairly well. Flipping action is quite nice. You know, again, all the materials are premium. The anno work is stunning. And if the anno work does not give it away, which it should, this was actually manufactured by Reich Knives. So they do some crazy stuff. I think their anno work is a pretty telltale / signature. So, you know, I like this little piece. I really have no qualms with it. It is something that I certainly would carry, and I have carried a couple times. I've had so many knives come in lately that this one has not gotten as much pocket time as it deserves. But you know, we'll talk about the blade here in a minute, kind of, I don't want to say philosophy, but we'll talk about the give and take with the thickness here on the blade. But when I was talking to Derek about this knife, his goal for this project was to produce a knife that was small, useful, and frequently carried. He said that, you know, people buy knives and they flip them so much. His goal was to produce a knife that someone would carry so much and like so much that they would never want to sell it. And that is a tall order today, with as quickly as people go through knives wanting to try out new stuff. We're always looking to have a new experience as quickly as possible. So, more power to him. I think the design has, depending on consumer feedback, it's got some room to potentially make some improvements to cast the widest net possible and make the most people happy. One other thing that Derek said that I thought was quite interesting is he said that he wants to hear from you guys as far as what you want. He said, I want people to reach out to me, let me know what they like or dislike about the model. Let me know if there's something they want me to change, or if they want a black coated version, if they want different anal work. He basically said, if you hate the design, you're welcome to contact him and tell him why. And I asked him if he was legitimately ready for that type of communication. He said, bring it on. I was like, all right, man, if you want to open Pandora's box, that's on you. So he's opened that door. He wants to hear from you guys as far as what you want done differently, things you like and dislike, if you love it, if you hate it. He said to reach out. So I'm going to put his Instagram in the description box below, so you guys can just knock yourself out if you want to see something different. So, with that in mind, trying to make a knife that is not sold in this day and age, I like the philosophy behind it. I think it's really cool. As to whether or not this is the knife that'll do it, maybe. I think it's a good size, and one thing that I like is that the ergonomics are quite good for the size. You're not sacrificing, a comfortable knife to be able to carry it. So, a really long-winded ramble of what I think. All right, let's get into the details, and let's start out with the blade and the blade thickness. So the overall blade stock isn't terribly thick. Let's take as compared to the Para 2, but the height of the blade, stupid magnets. All right, let's look at the Gent here. 0.125. 0.136, then behind the edge, 0.33 right there. If you guys think that's a fair spot. Let's look at the Gent, which is a much more slicey knife. So it comes down to a thinner edge for sure. Let's see how much thinner. That's where I'm at. Right behind the edge, 0.021. So this comes down to a thinner edge than the Para 2. So when you're looking at making, a knife for mass market appeal, and you're looking at blade stock and blade thickness and thickness behind the edge, there's two considerations that you have to keep in mind. And this isn't from Derek, this is just in general. But you either need to make a knife that's really thin and slices really well, because you assume that everyone's going to be using the knife for, packages and envelopes and maybe some food stuff, not what we would call heavy-duty cutting, right? And then there's the other school of thought that, you need to make the knife strong enough for the stupidest stuff that people are going to do out there. So, sometimes if you make a really thin slicer, you have guys who just beat the knives up, and you come back and you've got big old chips in the blade, and they think it's your fault or blame you for a bad design, right? Or you make something that isn't necessarily like a super duper slicer, but it takes the use and abuse of, some of what it's subjected to out there. So, that's kind of the trade-off that you're looking at is, do we make it thick enough to where people aren't going to be damaging it easily, or do we make it thin and make it a slicer? I don't really have a right or wrong answer. It really just depends on, the company, and if they stick with one form or another, they're going to continue to attract the people who prefer either a little bit thicker, more robust edges, or a little bit thinner, a little more slicier edges. So, it cuts fairly well. It went through anything that I needed it to. Is it going to, are you going to go through and do really thin slices on an apple? Probably not, But again, that's just one consideration. So, as I showed you guys, the action is really, really nice. Really smooth on the ceramic bearings. The balance is pretty good in the hand here, right on the first finger. It's actually really well balanced. The jimping up top works moderately well, but there's no hot spots ergonomically either. So let's take a look at the flipper tab, stop pin, centering, lock up. Now, do you want to show you guys one thing? You guys see that nick back there? When I first got the knife, it did not have any Loctite in the pivot, and so I was flipping it a lot, really trying to break it in quickly just to kind of see what I could get out of it. And when it got really loose, so the pivot was like really loose, it was actually coming down and hitting the back spacer. So now that I have it, Loctited and it's exactly where it needs to be, I no longer have that problem anymore. So anyways, food for thought. It did not damage the edge at all. Again, being M390 and being a little bit thicker behind the edge, there was no deformation or damage whatsoever to the edge. So anyways, they're probably working with some very tight tolerances in here. Just want, full disclosure. All right, handle. Really nice milling overall, and again, the anno work is phenomenal. All the edges have been chamfered. Reich Knives, really interesting company. They have some really, really nice machining, some really crazy stuff, and you can certainly see some of their machining capabilities here on this knife. The handle's a fantastic design. I think it's really well executed. There's just enough milling and work on it to make it visually interesting. Backspacer's pretty cool. So, and again, there's no sharp edges on the knife, which I'm very happy to report. Pocket clip works well in jeans, thank goodness. And there's the logo. What is this one? This one's number 3? No, that's the date. I don't know what that is. There's something on there. It's marked. You guys figure it out. So, anyways, cool little piece. Again, if I didn't mention the weight already, it's coming in at 2.79 ounces. So, fairly lightweight. It's a cool piece. They've got a few more. Actually, some really interesting stuff in the works with their manufacturer. I can't share what the designs are. I did get to see some renders and stuff, but they've got some more stuff coming down the pipeline that should be interesting. But again, I think the takeaway here is it's a partnership company focusing on design, and they've got some more stuff in the works. And if you want to, if there's something that you're interested in or you want to see, you can certainly contact Derek and let him know. As far as price, we didn't talk about that. I should probably bring that up, and then we'll talk about one other thing, but direct price on these is fairly expensive. These are coming in at $375. Now, right now on the website, they do have some factory seconds for sale, which basically mean that the anno work wasn't perfect, and on the factory seconds, they dropped the price to $250. So, that's what's going on price-wise, and some of the price decreases. So, if you're liking this and you don't really care about perfect anno work, then perhaps the factory second would suit you better. They do a couple other things. They have a 7-day return policy on the knife, so if you don't like it, you have 7 days to, I guess, try it out and obviously not abuse it. And if you don't like it, you can return it to them or contact them. I'm not in charge of the warranty, so talk to them. They also do something else that's kind of interesting. They do raffles. And the concept of a raffle is you put some money in, and if your number gets pulled or whatever, maybe you only spent $20 for your raffle ticket, you win the whole knife. And everyone else who didn't win, SOL, they just paid for your knife. So this company does raffles, but what they do is every dollar you put in for the raffle, you get store credit for. So if you go in, you've gone in on 10 different raffles and I'm making up numbers here, you paid like $200 out in raffles and haven't won a knife, well, you now have $200 of store credit you can use to buy something on their website, which I think is cool, and I think it makes raffles more legitimate to me rather than me paying for someone else's knife. So kudos to them. I think more people should do that. if they are going to do raffles. And yeah, that's it. So beat this one to death. Again, follow the links below if you want more info. Cool little piece. We'll see if my wife actually carries it or not. And in the meantime, thanks so much for watching. You can follow me on Instagram as More Epic Snuggle Bunny. No, you can follow me on Instagram as Epic Snuggle Bunny for more daily content. That's what I meant to say. So thanks for watching, guys. See ya.